Welcome to How to Create an Awesome Abstract. Our topic today is going to be everything you need to know about how to create and submit an abstract for the UTD PM Symposium. It's hosted by the PMI Dallas Chapter, UT Dallas, and PM World Journal. With us today, we have myself, Susan Kennedy. I am a past president of the PMI Dallas Chapter. I'm going to let our other presenters introduce themselves. We'll start with David.
Yeah, my name is David Pells. I'm the managing editor of PM World Journal.
And with René.
Hi, my name is René Le Bel. I'm the publisher.
And we also have another guest here, Kurt.
Hi, I'm Kurt Raschke.
Okay, great. And we'll be talking today about our experiences from the perspective of reviewing abstracts that are submitted and long time being on the board of the Project Management Planning Symposium. The symposium that we're focused on is an annual event. It is 2 days with multiple sessions and lots of keynotes. There are hundreds of attendees at this event, thought leaders and practitioners of project management. It's a very non-commercial focused event, so you won't see advertisers at this event the way you might at some other symposiums. It's very focused on academic learning and experience sharing. It includes a fabulous networking reception and also breakfast and lunches during the 2 days of the event. Now, let's talk about what the benefits are. David, would you speak to this?
Yes. Now, why should you prepare an abstract and present a paper at this presentation? This slide outlines some of the key benefits for presenters. With free attendance, we mean that everyone who presents a paper gets to attend both days of the conference at no cost. Certainly, you can earn PDUs for PMP recertification from PMI by preparing the paper, the PowerPoint presentation, and presenting it at the conference. So whether that's 1 hour or 10, it'll be up to you. Recognition, not only during the conference, but some papers will be selected for republication in the PM World Journal. You will receive visibility with everybody that views the symposium website and with the thousands of readers that we have in the journal every month as well. Networking, like any conference, this has networking opportunities in between presentation topics, before and after keynote presentations, and at a reception. I also want to mention some other important benefits not identified on the slide. It's really a tremendous learning opportunity for everybody who attends, and not only for you personally, but for anything you might gain to return to your employer or for benefiting future projects. Everybody learns something that they can use after the symposium. And finally, presenting a paper, in my opinion and based on my own experience, is a real important career move for anybody that's trying to move forward in their professional career. That is, papers and presentations can immediately go right onto your CV. They help you with your reputation and are an important aspect of anybody's career growth.
That's great. Thank you. Now, the talent triangle is mentioned here because this is a project management focused symposium, and most of the attendees here are interested in earning PDUs, professional development units, to maintain their certification. The talent triangle, for the way that it relates to the abstract, is that you need to make a decision about which sections of the PMI talent triangle your abstract is going to address. And this slide gives you some examples of topics and where they would fall in the talent triangle. The talent triangle includes technical, leadership, and strategic and business management. And as an example, agile practices, data modeling, earned value, things like that fall under what PMI considers their technical aspects of project management. Leadership aspects include things like negotiation and listening skills and dealing with conflict. And their strategic and business management section deals with benefits management, understanding the business, the relationship with customers, strategic planning, and things like that. Those will need to be identified in your abstract when you submit it for this. Now let's talk about what is an abstract anyway. It's basically just a short summary of a research paper. What makes an abstract awesome and of particular interest and a higher likelihood to be selected for presentation at this event, for one thing, having it somewhat unexpected, surprising the audience a little bit with something maybe in a way that they didn't think of before, or a situation where a unique approach was taken to solve a problem. It needs to have a broad appeal in general to project managers because that is our audience at this event. It should be relevant, it should actually be helpful, and not just theoretical. And it should be something that kind of captures your imagination. Now, the rules for submitting an abstract for this particular symposium, you need to be submitting a brief write-up of what you're going to talk about, and that would be about a half a page, 250 words or less. There should be some learning outcomes identified. Those learning outcomes should be specific, observable, measurable, falling in line with the PMI talent triangle. One thing that's very important to note here is there should be no sales or advertising content in the abstract or in the presentation. It's not allowed at this particular symposium. And it should be new information, something that has not previously been published. Most importantly, the title of your abstract and the abstract should reflect the content of what the paper is going to be about and ultimately what your presentation would be about if it were selected. We're going to go through 4 easy steps about how to get an abstract considered and selected for this symposium. You're going to start at the pmsymposium.utdallas.edu website. There is a button there that will be submit a paper or call for papers or submit an abstract. It changes year to year, so it's pretty easy. It'll be the button next to the register button. Once you get in there, you need to then think about what your audience is. Now, the audience at this event is a little bit different. Renee, would you like to speak to who typically attends this particular event?
Well, just about everybody who attends has a PMP, but not everyone presenting actually has a PMP. And we have people from all over the United States. Obviously, there's a huge DFW presence. And we really have people coming from all different kinds of industries, professions. When I say professions, I didn't mean professions. It's PMPs. But we have government, local city government. We have state. We have utilities. We have, some of the big Fortune 500 companies coming. So it's a really wide audience.
If I could just add, that's an important
Please,
point.
Kurt.
This is a very broad audience. So presenting a paper will give you exposure to a higher level in many industries, not just your particular segment.
That's right. And we do see across of just about any industry you can think of attending this, including industries that are not necessarily traditionally thought of as project management related, but industries like real estate and advertising and promotions and events, and of course healthcare and the airline industry and basically just about any industry you can think of will be here. One thing in particular to note is that these people who are attending this event tend to be sophisticated project managers who are well past the basics. They're people who, we have a large component of the audience who has attended this particular symposium multiple years, some who have attended every single year that it's been on. So this is an audience who is expecting a pretty high level of sophistication in understanding of the topics related to project management, agile, and things like that. When you're getting ready to submit your abstract, you want to select a topic. Consider what the theme is of the symposium for that year. A different theme is selected and posted every year on the UTD website. So think about what that particular year's theme is. And then think about your unique experience, especially as related to that theme. Think about things that maybe you found challenging in your role as a project manager or in your career as a business person. One thing that a lot of our attendees like are things that they can take back and use at the office the next day. Tools, templates, case studies, examples, those are all great for topics to select. When you're writing your first draft of your abstract, there's a format that works well for this, and we call it the challenge solution result format. Basically, what you're looking to do when you're presenting to an audience is you're telling the story. You're telling a story about your particular situation, about what you found, a difficulty that you encountered, or something new or unexpected that you found, or some research that you've done. But you want to be telling it in a way that people are interested in, with some personalization, because stories connect people. And facts and figures are interesting, and project managers love facts and figures. So those are great to have included, but stories and visuals really stick in people's minds. So we encourage people to think along those lines. Think about presentations that you've sat in on that really captured your attention. Most of the time there are some stories in there that bring the presentation to life. In the first part of your abstract, typically I would say the first paragraph, you want to set up the challenge, so to speak. Why was it that something needed to change? Because projects are all about changing things. And so there was some reason, there was either a problem or an opportunity, some kind of a catalyst that caused this particular situation to occur or this particular project to occur. So inform your audience and explain what it is. And some examples of ways to start it could be something like setting the stage. For example, the stakeholders didn't know what to expect. We were in a situation where X happened. Or we were in trouble. The competition was eating our lunch and we needed to do what? Change something. Or begin building the tension. One more failure in this particular situation and this project was going to be disbanded entirely. Or it was mission critical. Our business was going to close if we couldn't find a way to do something different. One thing that we ask as a courtesy is do not start your sentences with "in today's challenging world." Unless you're operating from Mars, we're going to just go ahead and assume that you're in today's challenging world and you can drop those words and get right to the important part of your story. Other ways to start an abstract, you might include a surprising fact. Did you know that? Or something like X% of your stakeholders don't know the name of your project, or decision makers spend less than 30 seconds reviewing your requests. Or you might start with asking a question. Have you ever wondered X? Where did this problem come from? Or how did our message get garbled? Things like that. An opening statement with that type of a question immediately captures an audience's attention. The next paragraph should be dedicated to the solution, talking about what was it that needed to be done, maybe talk about who was involved or how you did it. In the solutions section, some different ways to address that paragraph would be things like, we had to find a way to do X, or we began to analyze the data and we found this very interesting pattern emerging, or bringing stakeholders together was going to be a challenge. How were we going to do it? You can also talk about who was involved. For example, we needed top executives to understand something, or one particular outspoken stakeholder had a different idea. I once attended a presentation where a government official talked about an elderly woman who came into his office one day and said, I have absolutely had it with the healthcare situation in our country. Something must change. A person my age and my situation cannot possibly navigate what we have to navigate to get decent healthcare. That story stuck with me because it talked about an outspoken stakeholder and how that person changed this politician's approach and mind. Those are things that stick with people and are memorable and will help make your abstract stand out. Third paragraph should be something on the result. You set up a challenge, there was some difficulty you were dealing with. Here's the solution of what needed to be done. Now finish the story. What happened? Was it done in time? Did you meet the deadline? Were there benefits to your company? Income increases, expenses reduced? Project managers love measurements. We're all about measuring things. So if you show some statistics, you usually get a good amount of attention, and it lends credibility to your presentation. You want to think about, was there a surprise ending? Did things go differently as a result than what you were expecting? If you do use numbers, make sure to keep those numbers simple. People can remember 70% of something. They will forget 71.83% when they walk out of the room. So keep it simple where people can relate to it. If this led to something else happening, then that might be of interest. Or if you learned something significant, that would also be of interest. It's a good idea to share the credit with other people, and if things went well, share the credit with the other significant players. Perhaps your business people or your technology people made a major impact, or perhaps a particular stakeholder made a particular impact. It's okay to share what went wrong. Project managers live in this world where things go wrong. Sharing what you learned from it is of keen interest to other project managers. We're all looking to avoid pitfalls as we go through our life. Once you've put your draft together, you're ready to submit. But before you submit, make sure you run through and do some editing on it. Make sure it's clear in your 3-paragraph summary what the point is that you're getting to in your presentation. When you read through it or you ask someone to read through it for you, make sure that it leaves the person wanting to hear more about this story. Check and make sure you've got the correct word counts, 250 words or less, and double check your grammar and your spelling and punctuation. Also, before you submit, you're going to need to think about your learning objectives, and these must relate to the topic of your abstract and the body of your abstract. So examples of learning objectives would be things like at completion of this course, this session, participants need to be able to, whatever it is that you're imparting knowledge on, like draft a charter or create a new risk template or explain something or analyze. Look for verbs to start these learning objective sentences. More examples. At completion, participants would be able to, for example, identify 3 ways to create value, or identify the key questions, or discuss recent trends. Things like that are the format for your learning objectives. And then once you've got that all together, just finalize it. You'll need to update your bio, which would need to be submitted with this, and have a good photo to go with it. Take a breath, take one last look, submit it, and then, yay, you're done with this part. Submitting an abstract is kind of the start of the next phase, because if you're selected, then there will be your next phase of writing your paper and presenting the paper at the actual event. Let's talk about what the selection committee looks for when they are reviewing these abstracts. And René, I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about, as a reviewer, what are you looking for in top papers, and what are some mistakes for people to avoid? I know, René, you've been reviewing these abstracts for many years now. You're well experienced in it. What, from your perspective, is important?
Thank you, Susan. There were a couple things I just wanted to reinforce that Susan said earlier. One is that this is about academic learning and sharing, and that really is the point of this whole piece of doing the abstract. The challenge is 250 words, and it's always back to what do I leave out? And that's the hardest, one of the hardest things to do is you want to get it to 250 and it has to be meaningful, but you're going to obviously leave things out. So for me, when I'm reading the abstracts, and I don't know who you, by the way, we'll get to that, but I don't know who you are. I just see a nameless abstract, and I'm looking for what is this person going to say? So how does it engage me and gets me thinking about the what ifs? Where is this going to lead? But I don't expect in 250 words that you're going to tell me the whole point of the project, the whole point of your paper. that kind of sums it up for me.
Okay, very good. Renee, I know in the past you've mentioned that first paragraph, the first sentence is really important to you. That if you can't figure out what's going on, that you're going to score it down, things
Absolutely.
like that.
Yeah, that 'cause the first sentence kind of, and that's the hardest sentence to write.
It is the hardest sentence
It's usually
to
the
write.
last one that I would write. So.
Yeah, yeah, and you might consider that. Go ahead and do your first draft and then go back and recraft that first sentence because it's very important. Okay, thank you, Renee.
Thank you.
David, tell us what you're looking for.
Well, first, I want to remind everyone that we use a blind review process for reviewing abstracts. That is, the abstracts are separated from the bios and the names of the authors, so the abstracts really need to stand on their own. I look for something new and interesting, and also related to the theme. So it needs to be related to the theme and be something new and interesting. And I expect every abstract to be professionally written without grammatical errors and to really reflect somebody who knows what they're talking about. I guess those are the main points.
It's a good point. Very good point to remember. You've also mentioned before that sometimes you like to see something fun, creative, because reading a lot of these abstracts can get a bit tiresome, and we want to be sure that the presenter is going to be engaging the audience.
Yes, in fact, we found that people that are fairly creative in the titling of their paper or their abstract tend to attract more people attending their presentations. So we're looking for papers that will be well attended during the conference and will be of interest to our audience and our participants. So that's a good point, Susan.
Yeah, very good. Okay, great. And Kurt, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you look for in abstracts?
Thank you, Susan. I want to follow up what David just said. When I look at the abstract, I want to see something specific. I don't want to have just a lot of generalities. If I can't tell from the abstract what it's really going to be about, then that's a mark against it. And I'd also like to follow up on one of Renee's points, is that we're looking for innovation. Our audience are experienced project managers, and they really, really want to know what other project managers have found as successful, or if you're willing to admit it, what didn't work. I mean, they really like that too. Everybody's had their less than most successful experiences, and if you could share those as well, that's good too. Think about the audience, and they're trying to learn from you, and that's what I look for in the abstract.
Good. And David?
Yes, I wanted to add another point. That is, we've tried to focus this symposium on industries and projects and project managers in the DFW area. So keep that in mind. And we really like case studies. So if you can bring some actual experience and some examples that are relevant to the type of organization you're working in or some local industries, that's even better.
Very good. Okay, good points. We were really fortunate today to have 3 reviewers with us, and these gentlemen have been reviewing these abstracts for many years. They're well experienced in it. They have seen so many. I can only imagine how quickly they can assess whether one looks like it's going to have good potential or not. In the reviewing and scoring process, things that we're generally looking for are to make sure that it's relevant to project managers, that it's an interesting topic and it seems to be well defined. We also want to make sure the material looks original and that there's some practical application to it that people can take back and use. And we're also looking at overall level and quality, because this is an excellent forum.
Yeah, one other point is on the issue of being original. If you're researching and you're referencing other sources, be sure to footnote that or reference it in your paper.
Very good. Yeah, good point. It's fine to reference other sources, but just make sure you give credit for it. Let's talk about some frequently asked questions. For example, we're often asked, why are some papers not selected? And you can gather from from what we were just talking about, some of the reasons. One of the big ones is if it's not project or project management oriented, or if the level is too basic for the audience. If it's a rehash, something that we have heard so many times before, then we think it might not attract an audience. If it's something that's poorly written, if there are grammar mistakes, spelling mistakes, or if the purpose just seems to wander around and doesn't quite get to a point, then that will probably get marked down pretty heavily. Also, if it's a sales pitch, it will get tossed out right away. And if it's a reuse of another author's work, just as David was just speaking about, without the proper acknowledgments. Fine to reference another author, just make sure that it's acknowledged properly, because we don't want any of those issues. The abstract review process itself, first off, when you go onto the UTD website and you submit your abstract and you hit enter, that goes to UT Dallas, and there's a person there who then removes your name and identifying information about you and consolidates all those abstracts and sends them to the reviewing committee. The reviewing committee then independently, each person independently reviews and rates the abstracts and gives them a score. Those scores are all returned to UT Dallas, and the highest rated overall abstracts are selected until all available slots are filled for the symposium speaking opportunities. We're sometimes asked if preference is given to past presenters. Renee, would you like to speak to that one?
Well, we don't know if you're a past presenter because you're anonymous. So,
right.
I mean, we have had past presenters present.
Yes.
But we don't know who you are. So that would, I don't think past presenters have an advantage over someone presenting for the first time.
I would agree with that. And we encourage people who have not presented before to submit a paper, because since the reviewing committee does not know, they can't possibly give preference to any previous one, even if they wanted to. But the reviewing committee is also very focused on making sure that this symposium is fresh, is interesting, is providing new information. So new presenters are strongly encouraged.
Yes, and in your abstract, please don't include something like, as a follow-up to last year's presentation. So some secret note that you've been there before.
Yes, please. We really don't want to know. So with that, we encourage you to register now for the symposium. If you're thinking about submitting an abstract or a paper, get it going right now. There's a link available that's open through the PMI Dallas Chapter on the calendar. You can register directly through the UTD Dallas website. There are group discounts that are available, so talk to other people in your company or your HR department perhaps and see if your group might qualify for a discount. You can start getting a discount with only 5 employees from a particular organization. Symposium is held at the UT Dallas campus in Richardson at 800 West Campbell Road. For today's webinar, if you'd like to claim a half a PDU for listening to this webinar or watching this webinar, just go on to pmi.org and self-report it as a half of a leadership PDU. I'd like to thank our presenters today, Renee, David, and Kurt, for joining me. They have worked many years on helping to make sure that this symposium is fresh, is entertaining, and is of top quality. And I hope that they continue working for many years on pulling this all together. If you need more information, you can do a web search on UTD PM Symposium. There's an email address shown on the screen and a website that you can go to for any additional information. With that, I'd like to thank Renee, David, and Kurt.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck with your abstract.
Good luck. We look forward to seeing your abstract. Thank you.